The massive space station floated in the darkness between the stars. It was bigger than most cities on Earth, with lights that twinkled like jewels against the black void. This was Border Station Alpha 7, where new species came to ask for membership. In the Galactic Council, Commander Jake Murphy stood at the window of his ship, looking out at the alien station. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. His uniform was simple and practical, nothing like the fancy clothes worn by the other species. Behind him, his crew worked quietly at their posts. The USS Liberty was not an impressive ship. It was made of thick metal plates bolted together. The hull was scarred from countless battles and repairs. Steam leaked from old pipes. The engines made loud noises that echoed through the corridors. To anyone looking at it, the ship seemed old and primitive. "Sir, we're getting a message from the station," said Captain Lisa Hayes. She was Murphy's second in command, a woman with short brown hair and a no-nonsense attitude. "They want us to dock at Bay 7. Murphy nodded. "Take us in slowly. Let them get a good look at us." The Liberty moved toward the station with careful, measured movements. Other ships at the station were beautiful and advanced. Some were made of crystal that glowed with inner light. Others seemed to be alive, their hulls pulsing like a heartbeat. A few were pure energy, barely visible except for the space they bent around themselves. The human ship looked like a crude hammer next to delicate works of art inside the station. Alien beings watched the Liberty dock. They whispered among themselves, pointing at the primitive vessel. Some laughed. Others shook their heads in disbelief. How could such a backward species think they deserved a place in the Galactic Council? Admiral Zexter was the first to speak. He was a tall, thin creature with blue skin and 4 arms. His people, a hegemony, controlled the largest fleet in the galaxy. "This is what humans call their most advanced warship?" he asked his aide. "According to their message, yes, sir," the aide replied. "They claim it represents their military capabilities." Zexter studied the ship on his screen. The Liberty was roughly 300 meters long, small by galactic standards. Its weapons were clearly ballistic. They fired solid metal projectiles instead of energy beams. The propulsion system used chemical rockets, technology that most species had abandoned thousands of years ago. "It's almost sad," said Sub-Admiral Krita. "Her people lived in the ocean worlds of the aquatic dominion. She had gills instead of lungs and skin that sparkled like fish scales. They've barely learned to leave their own solar system." "Commander." Murphy entered the council chamber with 3 of his officers. Captain Hayes walked beside him, along with engineer Pete Collins and navigator Amy Foster. They all wore the same simple uniforms, with no fancy decorations or signs of rank beyond. Small metal bars. The council chamber was enormous, with representatives from dozens of species. Some breathed different gases and sat in special containers. Others were so large they appeared only as holograms. The humans looked tiny and primitive among them. "Welcome, humans," said Council Prime Jerthek. He was ancient, even by the standards of his long-lived people. "We have reviewed your application for membership. However, we have some concerns about your technological level." Murphy stood straight and spoke clearly. "We understand your concerns, Prime. We know our technology appears primitive compared to yours, but we believe we can contribute to the galactic community." Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. The translator system turned their alien noises into words the humans could understand, but the mockery was clear in any language. "Commander Murphy," Admiral Zexter said, trying to sound diplomatic, "your ship appears to be constructed with materials and methods that our children learn about in history lessons. How do you expect to contribute to our defense forces?" "We may surprise you," Murphy replied calmly. This brought more laughter from the gallery. Even the most polite council members seemed amused by the humans' confidence. Sub-Admiral Kree-Ta leaned forward in her water-filled chair. Your weapons fire metal projectiles at speeds we achieved 10,000 years ago. Your engines burn chemical fuel. Your hull is made of simple iron and steel. Our patrol boats have shields that could stop your entire armament. Captain Hayes stepped forward. Respectfully, Admiral, appearances can be deceiving. We would welcome the chance to demonstrate our capabilities. A demonstration? Zexter asked. You mean combat trials? If that's what it takes, Murphy said. We're confident in our ship and our crew. The council members exchanged glances. Some seemed concerned about the diplomatic implications of humiliating the humans too badly. Others were simply curious to see what the primitive species thought they could accomplish. Very well, Council Prime Jerthic announced. Tomorrow, you will face a standard training exercise. A Class 3 combat drone will test your vessel's capabilities. This is a simple test designed to evaluate basic combat readiness. We accept, Murphy said, without hesitation. As the session ended, the humans filed out of the chamber. Behind them, the council members continued their discussions. Should we use something easier? Asked one representative. A Class 3 drone might be too much for them. No, Sexter said firmly. If they want to join our defense forces, they need to prove they can at least survive a basic encounter. It's better they learn their limitations now. Back on the Liberty, the crew prepared for the next day's test. Engineer Collins ran diagnostics on all systems, checking every bolt and wire. Navigator Foster calculated firing solutions and evasive maneuvers. The ship hummed with activity as everyone did their part. Sir, Hayes said privately to Murphy, are we really ready for this? The whole galaxy is watching. Murphy looked out at the stars through the bridge window. Lisa, we've been preparing for this moment for decades. Trust the ship. Trust the crew. And trust that sometimes the best weapon is being underestimated. The Liberty drifted silently in its docking bay, looking like nothing more than a primitive relic. But appearances, as the humans had said, could be very deceiving indeed. The combat arena was a perfect sphere made of pure energy. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, big enough to hold several large ships. The walls glowed with a soft blue light that could contain even the most powerful weapons. Around the arena, viewing galleries held hundreds of alien spectators who had come to watch the humans fail. Commander Jake Murphy sat in his captain's chair on the Liberty's bridge. The ship's interior was cramped and functional. Pipes ran along the ceiling, and the walls were covered with switches and dials instead of the smooth holographic displays used by other species. Everything looked old and worn, like it had been repaired many times. Arena control to USS Liberty, came a voice over the radio. Please move to starting position 7. Acknowledged, replied Captain Lisa Hayes from her position at the communications station. She looked calm, but Murphy could see the tension in her shoulders. They all knew that the entire galaxy was watching. The Liberty moved slowly to its position. The ship's engines made a deep rumbling sound that vibrated through the hull. Steam hissed from various pipes, and sparks occasionally flew from electrical panels. To the watching aliens, it looked like the ship might fall apart at any moment. On the opposite side of the arena, a Class 3 combat drone appeared. It was sleek and silver, about the same size as the Liberty, but built with advanced technology. Its hull was perfectly smooth, and it moved without making any sound. Blue energy shields surrounded it like a second skin. That's our opponent? Asked Engineer Pete Collins, looking at his scanner readings. Sir, that thing has shields that can stop a nuclear missile. Its weapons are energy-based and can fire continuously. Its engines are at least 50 times more efficient than ours. I see it, Murphy said calmly. Foster, what's your analysis? Navigator Amy Foster checked her instruments. The drone is fast and maneuverable. Its shields regenerate automatically. Standard tactics suggest we should try to overwhelm it with rapid fire, but our weapons don't fire fast enough. Right, status on weapons? Murphy asked. Weapons Officer Danny Wright looked up from his console. All systems ready, sir. But honestly, I don't see how we can get through those shields with kinetic rounds. In the viewing galleries, the alien spectators were making bets on how long the humans would last. Most gave them less than 5 minutes. Some were more generous and said 10 minutes, but only if the humans ran away immediately. Admiral Zexter watched from his private box. This is almost cruel, he said to his aide. Perhaps we should have started with a Class 1 drone. The humans requested this test, the aide replied. They seemed confident. Confidence without capability is just foolishness, Zexter said. Arena's artificial intelligence spoke with a voice that echoed through the space. Combat trial will begin in 30 seconds. Both vessels, prepare for engagement. Murphy looked around at his crew. These were good people who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not survive it. They deserved to know what they were really fighting for. Listen carefully, he said. What happens in the next few minutes will determine humanity's place in the galaxy. Not just whether we get membership, but whether we're taken seriously as a species. Everyone do your job and trust your training. 10 seconds to combat initiation, the AI announced. The drone immediately sprang into action. Its engines flared to life, and it accelerated toward the Liberty at incredible speed. Energy bolts began firing from its weapons, each one bright enough to hurt the eyes. The first shot struck the Liberty's hull with tremendous force. The watching aliens expected to see the human ship explode or at least suffer massive damage. Instead, the Liberty absorbed the hits. Sparks flew from the impact points, and metal glowed red-hot, but the ship held together. Impossible, whispered Sub-Admiral Krita. Those energy bolts should have penetrated their hull easily. But the Liberty was still moving. In fact, it was moving in ways that shouldn't have been possible for such a crude-looking ship. It rolled to one side, avoiding the next barrage of energy bolts. Then it dove downward, its engines somehow providing more power than they should have been able to generate. Sir, I'm having trouble keeping target lock, reported the drone's controlling AI to the Arena staff. The human vessel is maneuvering unpredictably. Murphy smiled grimly. That's because we're not maneuvering like anyone else in the galaxy. Foster, execute pattern Delta 7. The Liberty suddenly changed direction in a way that violated several laws of physics. It spun around its central axis while continuing to move forward, presenting a constantly shifting target. The drone's sophisticated targeting system, designed to track normal ships, couldn't keep up with the erratic movements. Right, target acquired? Murphy asked. Yes, sir. Firing solution locked. Fire. The Liberty's main guns erupted. But instead of the crude chemical explosives the aliens expected, the weapons fired solid metal slugs accelerated to nearly the speed of light. The kinetic energy was enormous, far beyond what such simple-looking weapons should have been able to produce. The first volley struck the drone's shields. The blue energy field flared and held, but the impact was much stronger than expected. The drone's AI immediately began adjusting its shield frequency to better deflect kinetic attacks. Interesting, Murphy said. It's adapting. Fire again. Same. Target point. The second volley hit the exact same spots as the first. The drone's shields, already weakened by the initial impact, couldn't handle the concentrated assault. The blue energy field flickered and failed in several places. Shield. Failure in sectors 4 through 7, reported the drone's AI, attempting to reroute power. But the Liberty was already firing again. The third volley passed through the gaps in the shields and struck the drone's hull directly. The advanced alien metal, designed to withstand energy weapons, crumpled under the impact of the kinetic rounds. The drone tried to retreat, its engines flaring as it attempted to gain distance. But the Liberty was somehow keeping pace, matching the drone's speed despite its primitive-looking propulsion system. "How are they doing that?" Admiral Zexter demanded. "Our sensors show they're using chemical rockets, but they're matching a Class 3 drone's acceleration." In the arena, the battle was reaching its conclusion. The drone, damaged and unable to effectively target the human ship, made a desperate attack run. It fired everything it had, filling the space between the ships. With energy bolts, the Liberty flew straight through the barrage. Its hull took dozens of hits, glowing red-hot in places, but it didn't slow down. The ship seemed to absorb punishment that would have destroyed any normal vessel. "Final shot," Murphy said quietly. "Right, make it count." The Liberty's guns fired. One last time. The kinetic rounds struck the drone's main power core, and the sleek alien vessel exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The arena fell completely silent. In the viewing galleries, hundreds of alien spectators stared in shock. The primitive human ship floated alone in the center of the arena, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been considered a standard combat drone. "Impossible," Sub-Admiral Krita whispered. "They actually won." Admiral Zexter stood up slowly, his forearms trembling slightly. "Get me a full analysis of that battle. I want to know exactly how they did that." Commander Murphy's voice came over the arena's communication system. "Arena Control, this is USS Liberty. We're ready for the next test whenever you are." The silence stretched on for several more seconds. Then, slowly, the alien spectators began to murmur among themselves. The humans hadn't just won. They had won convincingly, using tactics and technology that no one understood. "Sir," the aide said quietly to Admiral Zexter, "what should we schedule for tomorrow?" Zexter looked at the Liberty, still floating calmly in the arena, as if nothing had happened. "Something harder," he said finally. "Much harder. We need to know what we're really dealing with." The joke was rapidly becoming something else entirely. And for the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was beginning to feel uncertain about their place in the universe. The second day brought a very different feeling to Border Station Alpha 7. Word about the humans. Victory had spread through the entire station. Alien species who had never paid attention to primitive races were now asking questions about the USS Liberty. The viewing galleries for the combat arena were packed with spectators. Admiral Zexter stood in the command center, studying reports from the previous day's battle. His analysts had worked through the night, trying to understand how the human ship had defeated the Class 3 drone. The results were troubling. The kinetic rounds were accelerated to .7 light speed, reported his chief scientist. "That should be impossible with the propulsion system we observed." The targeting accuracy was perfect, even while the ship was performing impossible maneuvers. "And their armor?" Zexter asked. "That's the strangest part. It appears to be simple steel plates, but they absorbed energy weapon hits that should have vaporized them." "There's something we're not seeing." Zexter nodded grimly. "Today, we find out exactly what that something is." In the combat arena, preparations were underway for a much more serious test. Instead of an automated drone, the aliens had chosen a living pilot, Vinash of the Kethmari Empire. He was considered one of the finest fighter pilots in the galaxy. With over 100 combat victories, Vinash's ship, the Stellar Blade, was a marvel of Kethmari technology. It wasn't really a ship at all, but a construct made of pure energy held together by advanced field generators. The vessel could change its shape and configuration instantly, becoming whatever the pilot needed it to be. "The humans got lucky yesterday," Vinash declared as he performed final checks on his systems. They faced a mindless drone. Today they face a warrior who has been fighting for 3 centuries. The stellar blade floated in the arena like a living thing. Its form shifted constantly, sometimes looking like a sleek fighter, other times like a massive cannon. Energy crackled along its surface, and space itself seemed to bend around it. On the Liberty's bridge, Commander Jake Murphy watched their opponent with interest. The alien ship was beautiful and deadly, clearly far more advanced than anything humanity had publicly revealed. But Murphy wasn't worried. If anything, he seemed almost eager for the fight to begin. "Analysis, Collins," Murphy said to his engineer. Pete Collins studied his instruments with growing concern. "Sir, that thing is reading off the charts. It can reconfigure its entire structure in seconds. One moment it's a long-range sniper. The next it's a close combat berserker. It's like fighting a dozen different ships at once." "Energy output?" asked Captain Lisa Hayes. "Enough to power a small city," Collins replied. "And it's all focused into weapons and shields." "Sir, I'm not sure. Our standard tactics will work against this." Murphy smiled slightly. "Then it's time to stop using standard tactics. Foster, plot an intercept course." "Right. Prepare the special package." Navigator Amy Foster looked confused. "Sir, what special package?" "You'll see," Murphy said. "All stations, prepare for combat enhancement." The arena's AI announced the beginning of the second test. Immediately, Vinash shifted his ship into long-range configuration. The stellar blade became a massive energy cannon. Its entire structure focused on delivering devastating attacks at the maximum distance. Lances of pure energy streaked across the arena. Each shot was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. The Liberty twisted and turned, trying to avoid the barrage, but several shots connected with its hull. The impact sent shockwaves through the ship, and sparks flew from damaged systems. But the Liberty didn't explode. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The ship began to change. Metal panels slid away to reveal hidden compartments. Armor plates shifted and reconfigured themselves. Weapon systems that had been completely concealed emerged from camouflaged positions. The crude-looking vessel was transforming into something else entirely. "What in the name of the void is that?" Vinash whispered as his sensors detected the transformation. The Liberty had become a weapons platform bristling with previously hidden armaments. Railguns, missile pods, and energy cannons appeared from positions that had looked like normal. HUL plates. The ship that had seemed primitive now revealed itself as a carefully designed war machine. "All weapons, open fire." Murphy ordered calmly. The Liberty unleashed a devastating barrage that lit up the arena like a miniature star. Dozens of different weapon systems fired simultaneously, each one targeting a different aspect of the stellar blade's defenses. The attack was so intense that it forced Vinash to immediately shift to full defensive configuration. His ship became a sphere of pure energy, all offensive capability sacrificed for maximum protection. But even then, the shields flared and sparked under the sustained assault. The humans weren't just firing randomly. Each weapon was calibrated to a different energy frequency, creating a multi-spectrum attack that overwhelmed the stellar blades. Adaptive defenses. "Impossible," Vinash muttered as he fought to maintain his shields. "No single ship can generate this much firepower." But the Liberty was proving otherwise. The ship's hull continued to shift and change, revealing new weapons as old ones overheated or ran out of ammunition. It was like watching a flower bloom. If flowers were made of metal and death. Vinash tried to fight back, shifting his ship through different configurations. When he became a long-range sniper, the Liberty's point defense systems shot down his energy beams. When he tried to close for melee combat, Kinetic rounds bracketed his position before he could get close enough to be effective. "Sir," his tactical AI reported, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the human vessel. Their power output is increasing exponentially." "How much power are they generating?" Vinash asked. "Enough to run a battle station," the AI replied. "And it's all being channeled into weapon systems." The end came suddenly. Vinash had shifted into a fast attack configuration, trying to use his superior speed to get behind the Liberty. But the human ship predicted his move. As the stellar blade materialized in its new position, a perfectly timed missile strike caught it between configurations. For a brief moment, as the energy field shifted, the ship's defenses were vulnerable. The missile penetrated the gap and detonated inside the stellar blade's core structure. The explosion was visible from the observation decks, a brilliant flash that temporarily blinded several alien species. When the light faded, Vinash's ship was gone. The stellar blade had been completely destroyed. Its energy forms scattered across the arena like dying stars dot in the observation galleries. Absolute silence reigned. The humans had just defeated one of the galaxy's most elite pilots using what everyone had assumed was primitive technology. The implications were staggering. "Get me a full tactical analysis," Admiral Zexter ordered, his voice shaking. "I want to know everything about that ship. Every weapon, every system, every piece of technology they just revealed." His aide was already working on it. "Sir, preliminary scans show the Liberty has at least 3 times the firepower of a standard battlecruiser. And that's just what we observed. There could be more systems still hidden." "How is that possible?" Sub-Admiral Krita asked. "The ship looks like it was built in a primitive factory." "That's exactly what they want us to think," Zexter said grimly. "The question is, what else are they hiding?" Commander Murphy's voice echoed through the arena communication system. "Arena Control, this is USS Liberty. We're ready for Day 3. Whenever you are." The silence that followed was deafening. No one was laughing anymore. The primitive human ship had just proven that appearances could be very deceiving indeed. "Sir," the aide said quietly, "what should we schedule for tomorrow?" Zexter looked at the Liberty, which had resumed its innocent appearance. The hidden weapons had disappeared back into the hull, and the ship looked crude and primitive once again. But now he knew the truth. "Prepare 3 Class 9 dreadnoughts," he said finally. "If we're going to test their limits, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with." The joke had become a mystery. And mysteries, in the military, were dangerous things indeed. The third day brought fear to Border Station Alpha 7. The news of Vinash's defeat had spread throughout the galaxy, and military commanders everywhere were asking the same question. What exactly were the humans capable of? Admiral Zexter stood in the command center, surrounded by his top officers. The decision he was about to make was unprecedented in the history of the Galactic Council. 3 Class 9 dreadnoughts, the most powerful warships in the galaxy, would face a single human vessel. "Sir, are you certain about this?" asked his chief of staff. "If we destroy them completely, it could create a diplomatic incident with their home world. And if we don't test their full capabilities now," Zexter replied, "we might face a very unpleasant surprise later. I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The 3 dreadnoughts took their positions in the arena. Each ship was over 1 kilometer long, armed with weapons that could crack planets and protected by shields that had never been breached. The hegemony's finest captains commanded them, with crews that had decades of combat experience. Captain Vorthek commanded the lead dreadnought, the Eternal Fury. He was a veteran of 12 major wars and had never lost a battle. As he studied the small human ship on his tactical display, he felt almost sorry for them. "This is excessive," he said to his tactical officer. "One of our ships could handle them easily. 3 is just showing off." "Admiral's orders, sir," the tactical officer replied. Full power engagement, no holding back. On the Liberty's bridge, Commander Jake Murphy stood calm and composed despite the overwhelming force arrayed against them. His crew worked at their stations with quiet efficiency, but the tension was obvious. Even the most optimistic assessment suggested this was beyond their capabilities. Sir, Captain Lisa Hayes said quietly, the crew has a right to know. Are we actually expecting to survive this? Murphy turned to look at his officers. These people had followed him across the galaxy, trusting his judgment completely. They deserve to know the truth. What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels, he said. For 50 years, humanity has been preparing for this moment. The Liberty isn't just our ship. It's our proof of concept. He moved, too. A console that had remained locked throughout their previous battles. His fingers entered a complex code, and the console came to life with displays and controls that hadn't been there before. The ship you've been serving on isn't our most advanced vessel, Murphy continued. It's our most convincing disguise. Around them, the Liberty began to change more dramatically than ever before. The hull plates didn't just shift. They seemed to flow like liquid metal. The crude steel construction revealed itself as programmable matter, capable of assuming any configuration needed. Sir, Engineer Pete Collins said, his voice filled with awe, the reactor readings are going past maximum. How is this possible? Humanity discovered zero-point energy 30 years ago, Murphy explained. We've been hiding our true technological level to avoid being seen as a threat. The Liberty has enough firepower to crack a moon in half. The ship's transformation was incredible to watch. What had appeared to be a simple metal hull was actually a sophisticated, adaptive platform. Weapon systems emerged from every surface, each one more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Liberty was revealing its true nature as a superweapon disguised as a primitive vessel. Navigator Amy Foster stared at her instruments in disbelief. Sir, we're reading power levels that shouldn't be possible. The ship is generating more energy than some stars. That's because we're not limited by conventional physics, Murphy said. The Liberty operates on principles that the rest of the galaxy hasn't discovered yet. The dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. Their combined barrage was enough to destroy a small fleet. The concentrated firepower of 3 of the galaxy's most powerful warships. The energy beams were so intense they created temporary rifts in space itself, but the Liberty wasn't where the shots were aimed. The ship had shifted into a configuration that bent space around itself, becoming nearly impossible to target. It moved through dimensions that the alien sensors couldn't track, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Where did it go? Captain Vorthik demanded. Full sensor sweep, all frequencies. Sir, I'm detecting massive energy buildup. His tactical officer reported. It's everywhere at once. The Liberty's counterattack was devastating. Energy beams that made the dreadnought's weapons look like flashlights carved through space, striking all 3 massive ships simultaneously. The beams didn't just hit. They seemed to cut through reality itself, bypassing shields and armor as if they weren't there. Impossible, Captain Vorthik whispered as his ship's defenses failed. No single vessel can generate that much power. But the Liberty was proving otherwise. The ship had become something beyond conventional understanding, a weapon that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen. It wasn't just fighting 3 dreadnoughts. It was systematically dismantling them. The first dreadnoughts' shields collapsed under the sustained assault. The ancient generators that had never failed in centuries of warfare overloaded and exploded. Without protection, the ship's hull began to buckle under the alien energy beams. Abandon ship, Captain Vorthik ordered. All hands to escape pods. The second dreadnought tried to retreat, its engines flaring as it attempted to gain distance. But the Liberty was somehow everywhere at once, its attacks coming from multiple directions simultaneously. The ship's captain watched in horror as his vessel was torn apart by weapons that defied explanation. The third dreadnought lasted the longest, its crew fighting desperately to inflict some damage on the human vessel. But their weapons couldn't even touch the Liberty, which seemed to exist partially outside normal space. The ship's final message was a simple transmission. Unknown technology. Recommend immediate retreat. In the observation galleries, panic had replaced curiosity. Representatives from across the galaxy watched in horror as humanity's true capabilities were revealed. The species they had dismissed as primitive had just defeated the most powerful warships in known space. "Sir," Admiral Zexter's aide said with a trembling voice, "our best estimates suggest the Liberty could destroy our entire fleet single-handedly." Zexter stood in stunned silence as the battle ended. The Liberty floated alone in the arena, surrounded by the wreckage of ships that had been considered invincible. The vessel had resumed its innocent appearance, but everyone now knew the truth. "Commander Murphy," he said into his communicator, "I believe we need to discuss new terms for your membership in the Galactic Council." Murphy's voice came back calm and steady. "We're ready to talk whenever you are, Admiral." "Sir," the aide whispered, "what do we do now?" Zexter looked at the Liberty, which gave no hint of the terrible power it contained. "Now we find out what the humans really want. And we pray they're as peaceful as they claim to be." The joke had become a nightmare, but perhaps with careful diplomacy it could become salvation instead. The galaxy would never be the same again. "Prepare an emergency session of the Council," Zexter ordered. "Every species needs to know about this." "And Commander Murphy?" "Yes, Admiral. Thank you for holding back." The silence that followed was filled with the weight of understanding. The humans had been gentle with them, even while proving their overwhelming superiority. The question now was what they planned to do with that power. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from every major species sat in tense silence as reports were distributed. The small human vessel had not only defeated their most powerful warships, but had done so while clearly holding back most of its capabilities. Admiral Zexter stood before the assembly, his usual composure completely shattered. The tactical reports in his hands painted a picture that challenged everything the galaxy thought it knew about warfare and technology. "The energy readings are beyond our understanding," he reported to the Council. "The humans generated more power than our largest space stations, and they did it from a ship that appeared to be primitive scrap metal." Murmurs of fear and confusion rippled through the chamber. Species that had considered themselves advanced now felt like children playing with toys. The humans had watched them for decades, learning their weaknesses and capabilities while revealing nothing of their own. Commander Jake Murphy entered the chamber with his small delegation. Captain Lisa Hayes walked beside him, along with Engineer Pete Collins and Navigator Amy Foster. They looked exactly the same as they had days earlier, but everything had changed. The galaxy no longer saw them as primitives asking for help. They were a potential threat to every established power. "Honored council members," Murphy began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber, "I want to apologize for the deception, but it was necessary for our survival and yours." Sub-Admiral Krita leaned forward in her water-filled chair. "What do you mean, our survival?" "Humanity learned long ago that in a galaxy full of established powers, being underestimated is often safer than being feared," Murphy explained. "We've been observing your species for decades, not to threaten you, but to protect ourselves and prepare for what's coming." The chamber erupted in confused voices. Council Prime Jerthic raised his hand for silence. "Explain what you mean by what's coming." Captain Hayes stepped forward with a data pad. 3 months ago, Our deep space monitoring stations detected energy signatures from beyond the galactic rim. Something is approaching, something that makes our demonstration look like a training exercise. The holographic display activated, showing readings that made even the Liberty's revealed capabilities seem small. The signal suggested a vast fleet of vessels, each one radiating power levels that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. We call them the Devourers, Hayes continued. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. Our best calculations suggest they'll reach the outer colonies within 2 years. Engineer Collins stepped up to the display. Controls. Sir, we're receiving priority messages from Earth Command. The advanced scouts had been detected in the Vega system. The weight of revelation settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. The humans hadn't just been hiding their strength. They had been preparing for a war that nobody else knew was coming. Why didn't you tell us about this threat? Demanded Council Prime Jerthik. Because 3 days ago, you thought we were primitives who barely knew how to leave our own solar system, Murphy replied. Would you have believed us? Would you have trusted warnings from the species you considered inferior? The silence that followed was deafening. Every species in the chamber realized they had been making the same mistake, judging humanity based on appearances while missing the truth entirely. Admiral Zexter stood slowly, his 4 arms trembling slightly. What do you propose we do about these Devourers? We form a real alliance, Murphy said. Not the token membership you are planning to offer us, but genuine cooperation. We need your numbers, your resources, and your knowledge of galactic geography. You need our technology and our experience fighting impossible odds. And if we refuse? Sub-Admiral Krita asked, though her voice lacked its earlier confidence. Hayes activated another display, showing the projected path of the Devourer fleet. Red lines stretched across the galaxy map, showing system after system falling to the Fun. Approaching threat. Then, in 18 months, this discussion becomes meaningless. The Devourers don't negotiate. They don't take prisoners. They consume everything in their path and move on. The holographic display showed the final calculations. Earth itself lay directly in the path of the approaching fleet. If the humans were lying about the threat, they were condemning their own home world to destruction. How long have you known about this? Asked Representative Thakmer of the Crystal Collective. Since before we made first contact with your species, Murphy admitted. Everything we've done, every choice we've made, has been preparation for this war. The Liberty isn't our only ship. It's our prototype. How many ships like the Liberty do you have? Admiral Zexter asked. Murphy paused, choosing his words carefully. Enough to make a difference, but not enough to win alone. That's why we need this alliance. Collins stepped forward with new data streaming across his device. Sir, the advanced scouts have been engaged by our perimeter forces. The battle reports are ... concerning. Show them, Murphy ordered. The display changed to show real combat footage from the edge of human space. The Devourer ships were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Massive constructs that seemed to be part machine, part living organism. They moved through space like predators, their hulls pulsing with dark energy. Our defense stations are holding them back for now, Murphy explained, but these are just scouts. The main fleet is 1,000 times larger. The footage showed human ships engaging the aliens. The vessels looked similar to the Liberty, but were clearly more advanced. They fought with desperate efficiency, using tactics and weapons that bent the laws of physics. But even with their superior technology, the battles were hard-fought and costly. Those ships, Zexter said, studying the display, they're not disguised like the Liberty. No, Murphy confirmed. Those are our actual warships. The Liberty was built specifically for this mission, to convince you that we were worth saving instead of conquering. One by one, the council members began to understand the full scope of what they were seeing. The humans had been playing a complex game for decades, hiding their true capabilities while preparing for a threat that would destroy everything. The motion for full council membership is approved, announced Council Prime Jerthik. All in favor of the Emergency Defense Alliance? The vote was swift and unanimous. Fear had a way of cutting through political complications. As the formal session ended, Admiral Zexter approached Murphy privately. "Commander, I have to ask, could you have destroyed our entire fleet with just the Liberty?" Murphy considered the question seriously. "Admiral, the Liberty carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet. But that was never the plan. We need allies, not subjects. And you think we can actually win this war?" Murphy looked out at the assembled representatives, each species now united by necessity rather than choice. "Admiral, you still don't understand what humanity brings to this fight. We didn't reveal our technology to threaten you. We revealed it to give you hope." "What do you mean? The Liberty isn't our most advanced ship." "It's not even close." Murphy's smile was grim, but determined. "We built it to look primitive so we could infiltrate your society. Our real warships make the Liberty look like a toy." Zexter felt his blood run cold. "How many real warships do you have?" "Enough," Murphy replied. "And Admiral? We've been building them for 50 years. Every human colony, every research station, every hidden base has been contributing to our fleet. When the Devourers arrive, they're going to discover that humanity doesn't just know how to fight. We know how to win." The warship that had been a joke to them was now their only hope for survival. But as the galaxy was about to learn, the humans had been preparing for much more than just survival. They had been preparing for victory. The real war was about to begin, and humanity was ready to show the galaxy what they were truly capable of. The Devourers would discover that consuming Earth species was going to be much harder than they expected. The Liberty drifted peacefully in its dock, looking once again like a primitive vessel held together with determination and hope. But now, everyone knew the truth. Appearances could be very deceiving indeed. The alliance was formed. The preparations were complete. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, an ancient enemy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their refusal to surrender.